It is Midweek Extra. I am Josh Sexton, joined today by Rob Gutmann, Beth Lindop and Abby Rudkin to react the shit out of Liverpool's 2-0 win over Newcastle at Anfield. We're all in good spirits, as you can tell today. You're not going to swear that early on YouTube, and I've sworn straight off the bat.
So you're not allowed to swear on YouTube?
It's just, it just means that like there's not as many ads you want to monetize it, not as many companies want to put their ads on it.
Shit's not a swear word.
I know, fuck it. Fuck those companies.
No, I'm not. I was going to top what you said. Then I would have been cancelled.
Don't cancel us, please. And if you do want to work with the Anfield Wrap,
yeah, we do family safe versions.
Go on, let's do some reaction to Newcastle. Then it was a lovely win for Liverpool at Anfield, going 13 points clear at the top of the Premier League, while Arsenal drew 0-0 away at Nottingham Forest.
Lost 0-0 away.
Lost 0-0 away at Nottingham Forest. As Robert's rightly corrected me. Rob, you walked into the studio today from South Liverpool.
It's visible spring in my step, would you say?
A visible spring in the air as well, I'd say.
Yeah.
You walked all the way from South Liverpool.
That's what I do.
That's how he rolls.
It's my superpower.
How long did that take you?
An hour and 10 minutes about. Yeah. Wow. But I do that every day. It's nice, isn't it? It's nice to do it in good weather.
And it's nice to do it when the Reds have won and have basically won the league.
Yes, so I listen to podcasts and audiobooks. But today, purely podcasts about the Reds winning the league.
We listened to the post-match show from last night.
All the post-match shows.
We've had some nice feedback on that so far. Mainly Ben Jono talk about us frying in league-winning oil.
That was very good. Him and Dan Austin, talked about it being like we're being simmered, sautéed. You know, we're not winning it in one guy anyway. It was a good metaphor. Set of metaphors.
I've not listened to it, so like everything's out of context so far for me, but there's something in the subscribers group about comfying my league-winning body or something like that.
Yeah. It is. I heartily recommend it. It's just like MasterChef but football.
MasterChef but make it win in the league. Beth, how are you feeling after winning the league this morning?
Yeah, it was. It did feel like that last night, didn't it? It felt like
again. That's what Dan Austin's point on the other show.
I think that's the thing, and it does feel like now Liverpool are gearing up for 3 months basically of just partying, which is a really nice place to be in.
At least in the league.
In the league, yeah, absolutely, and there will be challenges to come, I'm sure, in the Champions League. But yeah, it did feel like last night was sort of shades of Man United at home, when in the title winning season, when it was sort of that everyone had sort of known already coming into that game that Liverpool were probably going to win it. But yeah, it did feel like last night was the night that Anfield really believed, and just this real party atmosphere. And I think Newcastle were pretty abject, really. I was surprised how poor they were. They had a little flurry in the second half, start the second half, but I mean, obviously them not having Isak was a big blow for them, and I think a big boost for Liverpool. But Liverpool, I thought, were fantastic last night. You know, maybe not quite at the sparkling best for the whole 90 minutes, but they just sort of did enough to get the job done, and in patches they played some great football, and it just sort of felt like, you know, you contrast it to the win against Wolves last week, and it just felt like the shackles were off a little bit, and you know, the momentum has swung so far in Liverpool's favour over the past few days that it just felt like last night was an opportunity for them to go out and just show, you know, how good they can be, and I thought that they were. My only concern now is, you know, it was a pandemic that stopped them last time, wasn't it? Celebrating in front of fans. I'm just thinking, God, what dreadful world event could crop up over the next few months. So we'll stop, because it's all going too well.
We speculate on what it could be.
Yeah.
For like 10 minutes. I say nuclear holocaust.
Yeah, don't joke. That could be it.
That could be it.
That's probably the most likely scenario.
That is
wild.
That'd be worse than a pandemic.
So
it would. Yeah. Say what you like.
There'd be no behind closed doors then, would there really?
No,
so,
but no.
The thing,
no doors.
Yeah.
No doors. They're all flat on the ground.
But hopefully that doesn't materialise.
Hopefully.
Fingers crossed. If you're watching, Donald, please, you know, keep your finger off the button. But yeah, no, on the whole, it was a really, really great night, and providing that there is no major disasters, I think that the next few months it will be a real party atmosphere inside Anfield.
I think it was to a degree last night, wasn't it, Abby, in the ground? There was definitely that sort of watershed moment of where, for the first time this season, Anfield as a whole sung, "We're going to win the league, and now you're going to believe us." And that there's been some people who've been saying like whether they've joined in or not. I'll be honest, I was singing it at the top of my lungs. Were you giving it a go last night?
Yeah, 100%. The moment it was full time in
So
that
great
Arsenal
to hear.
game,
Giving
and
it beans. Yeah.
the thing was, I was like, right, I'm not going to check my phone. I'm not going to see what's going on in the Arsenal game. Was I shite? I was on my, like, it's terrible to be on your phone in the game, but I was literally every 2 minutes, my dad was going, what's the score?
Honestly,
What's the score?
it's like,
And I was like,
I know it was like a later than usual kickoff, but like I was going into the upper main, and usually the queue is like almost down to like taggies from the upper main. It's like it's a wild
It's
queue.
ridiculous.
There was no queue last night, and I got onto the concourse and realised it's because everyone had got in early, had a bevy, and was just stood around the tellies on the concourse watching the Arsenal game.
and they'd put it on as well,
Yeah.
and sometimes they don't
It was
put
on
it
at
on.
half
but
time. I was like, there might be a chance I don't go for the second half.
didn't
See
even,
this
like-
out.
I know, we were saying that.
They didn't even put our game on, it was just Arsenal, because the club knew. They were like, people are going to stand in here, and I was so excited, because my dad was going, right, when we get into the ground, I'll get the Sky Go up and we'll watch it on my phone. We walked in, it was on every telly, and I was like, oh,
I'm
yeah.
not going to struggle.
No, but my nerves were completely gone. But I went for a wee break, and I heard everyone go, oh, and I was like, oh no, what's happening? My nerves are going. But yeah, no, I defo give it a go last night, singing so loud. Once it was full time, it felt like everyone believed them once they dropped points. That's it, isn't it? It is happening, and I have the most pessimistic dad in the entire world, where he's like, not until it's mathematically impossible do I believe. And last night at full time, he turned to me and was like, that's it, we've done it. And I was like, yeah, great win. He was like, no, we've won the league, that is ours, and I believe now. And I was like, oh, of all the people to say it, the most pessimistic man in the world, who's traumatised from all those seasons of us not winning it, he believes now, and that was me going, right. Although I said it after City, I was like, it's 100% ours now. And I feel like it was such a professional performance, because so many players I thought were going to be absolutely legged from that City game, and I didn't think they could go again. The fact that Szoboszlai was on the team sheet, I was like, God, he's going to be strolling around. I was knackered just watching him the other day. And
He was strolling around just in a different way.
yeah, strolling around in a different way, just
Swaggering.
knocking the ball into the goal. But yeah, unbelievable. And now I'm just filled with excitement, and it does feel like the nerves are gone from the ground now. That was something that's been a problem for a while. You could feel Anfield was nervous, and people weren't really singing for a few games, and it was just so tense at all times. And it was me as well. I was probably part of the problem. I was feeling on edge, but yesterday it just felt like we were unleashed. Really, we all believed, and that's it for me. I do believe it's ours now.
Yeah, well, we're all
Done the
believing.
maths, Josh.
Go on, hit me with the maths.
When we're going to win it, where we're going to win it.
Tell me.
It's 3 scenarios, right? If it goes very well for us in the next few games.
Southampton.
No. It's if Arsenal drop the points, you sort of think they will in 2 of the next 4, like maybe against Chelsea, maybe against at Goodison, possibly. If they do that bit and we win out, then I think in about 5 games' time we could. That's our best case scenario at Leicester. That's where the party would be, at Leicester. Wow. That's the earliest. There's then a slightly likelier chance that it happens at Tottenham the week later. That's at Anfield. There's a fairly good chance it happens the week after that, home to Arsenal. That's fucking weird. I mean, but if you bet,
I think I want the Guard of Honour from Arsenal.
Yeah, I'm the same.
I think
You want it done?
I want it done.
Oh, so do I.
Tottenham Guard of Honour.
Sooner the better.
Yeah.
But I don't know what the bookies would say the likeliest day for it to happen would be. Maybe Tottenham, but I think it's pretty close to it being Arsenal, which is spooky, really, isn't it? But if you want to calm your dad's nerves, because I'm not that dissimilar, but I always go for what is the actual calm down, Rob. It's not about superstition. What's the probability? The probability you get from the bookies, they'll tell you what's going to happen, really. Well, I think we're about 97% now to win this league. That's pretty darn likely.
You are a fairly superstitious man as well, though, aren't you?
With football.
You're a little stitious, definitely.
With football, yeah. Oh yeah, magpies do my head in. All kinds of ladders.
But you hate playing Newcastle, then, don't you?
Those guys.
Another one.
Yeah.
We've won the league again.
So it's too exciting for us. It's all, but you've got to check your privilege now. Almost like we're going to win the league. I mean, we just dream of this stuff, and we won it once under Klopp, and we thought, and then it didn't happen when we got 97 points, and then we couldn't defend the title, and then there was COVID. You think we'll not win it again, and then just like that, with a new manager, you go, well, we've got to go backwards now to go forwards. We've lost the best manager of all time. we're not going to get better, are we, all of a sudden? Nobody expected that. Everyone thought top 4, come on, that's all right. Be fair to the new guy. Not to go forward and win the bloody league. I mean, that's it's beyond our wildest dreams, really. So you've got to, I mean, you know, people are, the online discourse is, yeah, but we haven't had the injuries. Arsenal have had the injuries. Finding ways to denigrate it in some days. I was listening to Jason fucking Cundy on Talk Sport going, yeah, Liverpool are boring and all, just things,
It's good.
Just things. Do you want me to do more Cundy? I will later. But there has to be something, because we've done it too easily in people's eyes. I think we've got to be just calm down. I mean, I want to win the Champions League so badly, and I almost think we've given ourselves a platform for that in a massive way by doing what we've done in the last week. Because we really, we could genuinely be getting to the stage where we're resting people, seriously resting them for league games, between Champions League games. I mean, we're virtually at that stage for Southampton, where we'll put a League Cup team. I don't think we will, but you could make 5 or 6 changes for that game, good changes. So these are the times in which we live, Josh.
Yeah, you're right to say we should give the new guy some patience. I think Johnny Heitinger's made a good start to his Liverpool career, but we should it's hard to follow Slot's footsteps because he's done so well at the club. So it is a good one though, Beth, because like you look at the run we've been through recently, and there was definitely Arsenal fans within the said discourse that Rob was sort of talking about. You know, looking at Liverpool's run of 5 league games in 14 days, and like, this is finally the run where Liverpool's wheels will fall off. There was segments on Sky where they're talking about how the wheels are going to fall off Liverpool run out of steam and all these kinds of things. So to come out that with 3 wins and 2 draws, totaling 11 points, while Arsenal, I think they won, lost and drew in that time, albeit obviously playing less games. Like, you look at that and think Liverpool arguably got stronger as the run went on. Their 2 most impressive wins of that run, really, you'd say, would be the City one and then the Newcastle one.
Yeah, I think that was probably what the most impressive thing was last night. And we spoke to Virgil after the game, and he sort of said the same thing. The thing that impressed him most last night was the energy and the fact that 20 minutes from the end, players are still tracking back and chasing players down and hunting, and it does seem like, and I don't think this is a new thing actually for Liverpool, but I think this was the same under Klopp. You fear those runs where Liverpool are playing every 3 days, but actually I think that's when Liverpool are at the best, when they get into a little bit of a rhythm, and I think that's what we've seen. And yeah, it did feel like this stretch had been billed as where the title could be won or lost. And, Arsenal have given Liverpool a bit of a helping hand. Had they beaten West Ham, as I think everyone expected that they would have done, I think that City game might have had a different feel to it slightly. I still would have backed Liverpool to have gone and got the job done at the Etihad, because I think they're so locked into what they need to do in this title race that, I would have backed them to go and win there anyway. But it did help. It made Sunday feel a little bit of not a free hit, but it took the pressure off a little bit. And then obviously last night again, aided by Isak not playing, but it just sort of all conspired to make it feel like it was, it's Liverpool's year, and I think that helped.
That West Ham game, Beth, I think we might come back to look at that. I mean, Arsenal at home to West Ham was one of those pivotal games in modern Liverpool history. It changed a week where we were all a bit down after Villa. Yeah. And suddenly we're going, wow, they're going to beat West Ham. And with a bit of confidence there, they probably beat Forest. I know we think they won't win at Forest. They won't win, they will. Yeah. And we're not going to beat City and Newcastle. It's 2 tough games. The swing against what we expected and what's happened, I was doing some maths on it, it's almost about 7 points in expectation. So that's what we've gone from, thinking, as you said, under stress to it's done. And it's West Ham, I think that's the key game.
Yeah, I think it will look back on the weekend just gone as sort of the season defining weekend. I know there were sort of others earlier in the season where Liverpool won and Arsenal dropped points, and there might be more between now and the end of the season, but I do think that is the weekend, wasn't it? It's the weekend where
killed Arsenal's spirit and
bolstered Liverpool's massively. And I think as well, you've got to give credit, like Rob said. I think there were a lot of people down after Villa. And I understand that looking ahead at West Ham and thinking, well, Arsenal will probably win there, and then it makes things, it builds the pressure on Liverpool. But actually, you look and you think the only reason that people were saying that Liverpool were having a bit of a blip is because they've drawn away to Everton and they've drawn away to Villa. In isolation, those 2 results are, even for a team challenging for a title, are perfectly fine results. Yeah. Just because they were in such close proximity. And then if you look at those games, you think the derby, Liverpool had won that game. It was a real sort of freak of nature kind of event that made Tarkowski score that goal. And I do think that, it's something you can't mitigate for in football, but just the whole narrative of it being the last Goodison derby, to me, that's the only reason that goal happened. And there's no proof of that, but it was sort of destined, I think, for Everton to have the last kick of that game. But Liverpool were within seconds of winning that. Liverpool should have won that as well. He had, I know Villa had a couple of chances late on, but Liverpool in that second half were much the better team. So, for them to get through that tricky run and arguably have deserved, not deserved to win, but have come so close to, they went that far away from winning all of those games. So yeah, it's been such an impressive run from them, and yeah, like Rob said, I think the weekend was the shift in momentum that has got them, or touch wood, will get them over the line.
I think just quickly, I think the key, obviously the West Ham thing changes the mood.
Yeah.
But you still got to go to City. And it reminded me that we went there and did the job against, the hardest team traditionally that we could face on their own man. Our first win there in whatever it is, 15 years. It reminded me of when, do you remember, maybe you're all too young, but the Arsenal Man U used to face off every year, it seemed like, in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I remember Arsenal winning the league twice, and each time they went to Old Trafford and got a 1-0 or something like that. I think one year Mark Overmars scores another, I don't know, is it Sylvian Wiltord or something. But they were big wins, about 8 games from the end, 9 games from the end, and you go, that's what champions do. Yeah. They go to the away ground against one of their hardest rivals and they pull off the win that seemed just a bit too hard to do. And to go and beat City at that moment, and City played well that day, a City who were hugely determined to make something of their season, put everything into it, and we went there and beat them. And I think that's, that combination, that weekend is the weekend in our history we will talk about for years to come, I'm sure of it.
Yeah, it definitely is the weekend that I guess the belief turned into a bit more of expectation. Like I certainly had that sort of balance of belief and expectation last night, especially when, as Beth said before, you see that Ishak's not in the squad at all for Newcastle. You suddenly think that if Liverpool can get an early lead in that game, then it feels like it's only going to go one way, and that's the way it transpired really. And I saw a good tweet from me and Ryan before that Szoboszlai goal would have gone in just as Arsenal were coming out of the changes for the second half. So again, it's that sort of almost like sliding doors moments of like when the belief, or sort of, the air goes out of Arsenal's balloon and it goes into Liverpool's.
Yeah, well, how many times have we been the Arsenal in that situation where you've seen, God, City have scored, that company goal, I can still remember screaming shoot at the TV just so he'd sky it and it went in. Those sorts of moments, and you think, oh, right, that's the moment they've won the league. I think the reason why we all have had this little bit of dread before this weekend is the manner in which that derby went, the manner in which that goal went in, and you think to yourself, right, okay, they've scored a last-minute equaliser there, the heads look like they dropped a little bit, that could be the moment where everything starts to change, because how many times have we been there before where we've seen these moments change the mentality of the players? And I think we've been so lucky that the heads haven't dropped and they've gone out, and I think Slot as a manager seems to be really good at that. He's come out in the presser and he said, oh, don't like the way Nunez's heads drop, things like that. He just seems to be managing them so well and being able to keep their heads high, which under Jurgen with that like full throttle thing, because he's so emotional, when moments like that had happened, he'd be devastated. So I feel like you could feel that, and then our heads would drop, but you just don't get that with Slot. He's just like, go again. Obviously it was hilarious looking at how passionate he was last night. He was fuming that pen wasn't given.
It's like he didn't think there'd be any cameras on him.
No, he didn't, and he was absolutely fuming. But I think the belief's there now because of that weekend. And how nice is it to just win 2-0 comfortably, by the way? Clean sheet, 2 goals. It feels like a title winning team now. Like those moments haven't impacted us too much. 11 points out of 15 over the toughest fixtures that we've had there over 15 days. I just don't think that we could have asked for more. Honestly, I was fully expecting to draw against City. You know what I mean? Villa was probably unexpected, but we didn't play that well against Wolves, and I think that was where we sort of struggled from the derby. But I just don't think we could be asking for any more. And obviously we've got the Champions League to focus on now. I think only having one game in the Premier League in March is going to be a massive help, because it does just get you to go, right, okay, guys, you've got a final to look forward to, and then you've just got to go and play PSG, which we should do. We should do fine then. I mean, PSG are a good side, but I still feel as though these players are going to feel 10 foot tall at the minute. So I just felt like last night was just so professional. It was just one of those things where it just didn't feel like for 1 minute that we weren't in control and we weren't going to win the games. Don't get me wrong, my nerves did come back. In that second half against City, I was like, I just don't feel nervous at all, and I don't know why. I feel like we've won it, but there was something about playing at the same time as Arsenal until they'd finished. Yeah. The nerves are still there because you constantly keep on one eye on what they're doing, and I don't even think we have to do that now. I don't know how you feel, but I just don't. I mean, we probably do. I'll celebrate if they drop more points, but it just feels like just focus on us now. We've only got to win 7 games.
We haven't got any games to watch in March. We might as well watch them.
Well, yeah, you know what? Fair point.
I'm looking forward to watching them against Man U and against Chelsea, because what else are we going to do? Yeah. I'm used to on this rhythm of 2 games a week. It's going to be difficult to cope during.
Watching Arsenal constantly now. Yeah.
It's almost like watching them with the pressure off, though, Rob, isn't it? And that's the thing, is like, I think for ages I say we, because I'm sort of, I'm almost including all fans in this. Like, we can always do down what we think Liverpool can contribute, what we think these players can contribute. There's definitely been, questions asked even in such a brilliant season of, when Liverpool have been through sort of blips in the season, which have only been draws really, because the Nottingham Forest game, which it's still the only loss of the league season so far, wasn't part of a blip. It was almost like an outlier in what was a brilliant start to the season. Otherwise, it's been, draws with United and Fulham at Anfield. It's been the draws with Everton and Aston Villa away, which, are not even coming one after the other either. It's been, one game in, one game out. Liverpool managing to win in between. It feels like if you're an Arsenal or a PSG, I know Arsenal have certainly, they'll probably feel like their race is run now, and it seems that way from the sort of temperature you take on social media from their fans. But Liverpool just seem like they constantly keep clicking up the gears, and you look at someone like Dominic Szoboszlai, who I think is starting to embody what this Liverpool side looks like they can do in the latter part of the season, because the sort of goal contributing form, if that makes sense, in terms of goals and assists that he's been in for the last 2 games, but really has been sort of purring into that form for a little while now. Like, he looks like he's just coming to the party at the right time. Imagine telling him that people think PSG might be slight favourites.
I know, and he's going to get a week's rest, which is, that's like giving Superman a week's rest. You know what I mean? How fit is he going to be?
Yeah. Saying there's no kryptonite left in the world, so you just crack on. I
mean, we all saw Dom collapsed on the turf at the Etihad and thought, well, he's got to rest him surely for Newcastle. The boys signalling it, but no, he came again and again. He was incredible. I think it's interesting. Thinking about, you talk about the resoluteness of Liverpool this season when they've needed to be. In that spell from Everton to Villa, including Wolves in the middle, it's worries us all, I think, because we concede 6 goals in 8 days, and that's the period before that. We were keeping teams out. We were winning 2-0 against Brentford, difficult aways against Bournemouth 2-0. We kept Spurs out, 4-0. So we weren't a team shipping goals, and suddenly in a week we were. But I think it's cliche, but mark of champions. Then we go, okay, this stops. We go to the Etihad, where if we're slack, they will score. Newcastle, all the riches in attack, and we've kept 2 big clean sheets there, I think. And yeah, Dom Szoboszlai is a massive part of it. He's emerging as, I don't know, in a season where you go, well, Gravenberch's been the midfielder of the season, and maybe the man of the season, and then people are, well, McAllister, of course. He had a sort of slightly low-key start, and then people, if you listen back to shows, I reckon, from November, December, they go, oh, it's all about McAllister. Yeah. And Szoboszlai, people forget, there's niggles of little murmurs of criticism of him, not just last season, in following into this season,
100%.
Which I'm going to be smug and say I never thought were fair.
No.
I just don't actually think, because the only time I think he had a slightly wobbly spell was when he came back from injury last season. But people were very quick to jump on him. They were all over him in his first 3 games when he signed last year. Do you remember the new Steven Gerrard nonsense? And then because he didn't keep scoring, it was suddenly, oh, he's not the player we thought he was. Then he gets injured. But this season, he's built. He's a young player. What is he? He's even 24. Yeah, he's 24 now. Right, we bought him at 23. This is a sweet spot age now, 24. Even for a central midfielder, even older, you should say, before they mature, before we see the best of him. I think it's a way off, actually. But the energy, the true box-to-box midfielder now. And I think goals are everything in the game of a midfielder. You talk about it with a striker. It's confidence, isn't it? I would like to see Dom get double figures for the season. He's on 7. I think psychologically to become a 10-goal midfielder, you'd go, wow.
Is that 7 in the league or 7 all comps?
7 all comps.
Right, okay.
I mean,
so
you know,
double figures all comps.
In a parallel universe, he's I don't think he's missed a penalty in his life, by the way, at Leipzig or for his national team. He's a hell of a penalty taker. Hopefully it goes to penalties in the League Cup final, we see it.
Scores that same free kick for Hungary every international break.
The one that keeps showing, but his penalty taking technique is crazy. He virtually points where it's going to go and he puts it. The keeper always gets the right way. But it's by the by. My point I was going to make is, if he'd just been the club penalty taker, he might be on 13 goals or something like that for the season. And you'd be going, wow, look at this. He's like Lampard or Peak De Bruyne, delivering numbers and goals and all this. So don't get ahead of ourselves, or fire alarms going off. It's because Dom Szoboszlai is too hot. It's because Dom Szoboszlai is too hot. But yeah, he is getting better and better, and if we can keep him fitter. Applies to all of them. He's now part of the best midfield in the world.
And that's where, Beth, I think you're seeing probably the most of the Arne Slot sort of prototype for this team, really, where the midfield does feel so important, because you think back to previous Liverpool seasons, there was the league winning season, you'd say the centre-half partnership was brilliant with Virgil sort of anchoring that, the full-backs were brilliant, bombing on, doing the job they did, the front three, that front three at its best was almost like, well, if Salah's out of form for a minute, then surely Mane's scoring. If both Mane and Salah, it doesn't really ever happen, or didn't really ever happen in history, but when they were both out of form, Firmino would be popping up with the goals. I feel like you've seen a little bit of that from the forwards this season, albeit with Salah carrying the sort of heavier load of that. Diaz started the season well, and then Gakpo came into his own just after that. But really with the midfield now as well, you're not just seeing, like, it's not just an engine room. I think it is an engine room, it is the heartbeat of this Liverpool team still, but you've seen, as Rob said, where Gravenberch starts really well, where McAllister comes into it, and now we feel like we're almost in the, if you want to call it eras tour of Liverpool that we're doing. We're in the Szoboszlai era.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think if Liverpool go on to have an open top bus parade in a few months' time, I think they need to get Jörg Schmadtke on there, because he
absolutely
masterminded a sensational summer window, didn't he? Really,
at least FaceTiming from the sunbed in Ibiza. Didn't
he say he admitted in a recent interview that he thought we overpaid for Szoboszlai at the time? He was saying don't pay the release clause, it's too much. He liked him, but not that much.
Yeah, but I mean, you look back and you think,
gobshite.
It's easy to forget as well that summer window that ultimately brought Szoboszlai, McAllister, Gravenberch and Endo to the club. There was a lot of discontent because of the whole Moises Caicedo saga, and a feeling that Liverpool had sort of missed out by not bringing him in. And, I'm not doing down Caicedo, because I think even though he's had a shaky start at times at Chelsea, I do think he is a very good player, and I think he will go on to have a very good career. But you look now and you think, gosh, what a fantastic summer window that was for Liverpool, and so therefore the recruitment team and Jurgen Klopp deserve an enormous amount of credit for bringing those players to the club. And it does feel like now, Liverpool almost have a City-esque kind of midfield. I think that was always the area where City had the advantage over Liverpool when they were going toe to toe. I think Liverpool had the superior defence, probably edged the attack as well, probably because of Mo Salah. But, the midfield was where City, I think, won all of those league titles, because they had so much in there. They had so much guile, so much creativity, technique. Whereas Liverpool's midfield was great, but it was quite workmanlike, wasn't it? And it was about sort of the running and the energy and the relentlessness. Whereas I think now they have such a blend of everything. And yeah, Szoboszlai has been incredible. Like Rob, I feel quite smug. I've always thought he's a pretty special player, in this season in particular.
I think the four of us in this room come out of that argument well, in fairness, from what I can remember.
Team Dom.
Yeah.
I might not have been.
We won't tell anyone.
Okay, three out of 4 is all right.
But yeah,
no one go back.
I wrote something, shameless plug, I wrote something this week for ESPN about him, and spoke to a few people sort of back in Hungary, and people who've coached him and worked with him and stuff. And I think sort of the overwhelming thing when people talk about him is, you don't realise quite how revered he is back in Hungary. Like he is a god. He's one of the most famous people. He had a McDonald's meal named after him in the summer. He's the face.
What was it called?
The Dommy meal.
The Dommy meal. What was in it?
I'm not sure. I can't imagine he's eaten many of them when you look at the energy that he has. But he's the face of like a massive sort of
Salah status over there. Yeah, he really is. Because I remember I made a joke tweet. Do you remember that, where he was single again? And I was like, oh, Szoboszlai single again. I reckon about 200 Hungarians messaged me like, "You're not good enough for Szoboszlai. She hasn't got beauty or the brains for Szoboszlai." Who did? Because the Hungarian version of the Daily Mail wrote an article, and put like, "New bombshell wants to be Szoboszlai's love interest."
Wow.
And honestly, me TikTok, all the comments I've got, I came up the other day like 1 year ago today, and it was all me screenshotting these women going
Beth,
like,
you missed a key interview for your piece.
I might add this in.
people were like, "Who does she think she is? She's got no chance with Szoboszlai." You know,
Scorned one-time lover Abby
that's
Rudkin.
when I realised, like, oh, like he's actually seen as like Salah status. Like these people genuinely are disgusted by my joke.
I mean, that does say it all, really, doesn't it? And like, I just think, I think it was 21 when he got made captain of the national team, and you just think like he's the sort of character who is able to carry the hopes of his country, and that sounds really dramatic, but genuinely that is how he is viewed in Hungary, and as Abby can attest to. But I just think in terms of, obviously he's a fantastic player, but in terms of a character as well, to be able to have that mentality to do that, I think that's also what makes him so special. So it's Gravenberch obviously for most of the season has been the man, hasn't he, in midfield, and has been sensational. But I think all three of Liverpool's midfielders, deserve enormous credit. And then you've got Wataru Endo, who is quite possibly my favourite player to ever play.
And Curtis Jones, by the way. I mean, I still think we may be in for a Curtis Jones era in this season.
I'd love that.
Quietly, Jones has had. He's punctuated the season with games where we've gone, bloody hell, Curtis was good. Where does he score a big game? Was it Chelsea? Yeah. And I think was it Real Madrid he plays really well against? Or am I getting it mixed up? I can't remember. But there's definitely big games I remember where Curtis really, really shows up. And poor Harvey Elliott, it's been a sign of the fact that we've kept people fit. I mean, the hidden star of the season has been the keeping of people fit. I know it's the banter point of the season because Arsenal haven't.
Well, it's something we were saying about the manager before he came in. We were saying his injury his record with keeping players fit is great. Like, it was one of the, really, it was meant to be a selling point of his.
Yeah, it absolutely was. But you sort of go, but he's managing in the Dutch league where they don't have to run as hard and fast. He's not taking players to the latter stages of European competition. He's not in 4 trophies like we are. It's a whole different ball game. I'll believe that when I see it. But we are seeing it. I don't quite know what he's doing to pull it off. I mean, maybe next season or even the tail end of this season we'll all look stupid and we have loads of injuries. Arsenal don't have any in last season and suddenly do this season. Players' legs fall off. But I'd like to think that Slot is on to something, him and his team, and they will manage minutes. I think if you listen to the mood music around when he's hinted at the summer transfer plans, I think it's a bigger summer without making this into a sudden impromptu gutter show. Although we could.
It's not quite award-winning yet.
You never know. 97. I think there could be more new faces coming in than we think this summer. I could see 5 significant signings, 2 in defence, 1 in midfield, 2 in attack, and quite a big overhaul. For a variety of reasons, and the team that's peaking next season may look quite a bit different to this season, and that's possibly the way he might think about it in terms of freshness and injury, because we are going to burn players out. There's no doubt about it. But there's hints that we're not doing the same workload in training. Which is fascinating. I'd like to know the full truth behind the headlines on this one, but long may it continue.
Well, I think you've seen it in games as well, Abby, where Liverpool look like they sort of are able to ease through the gears, especially later in games. Like Liverpool have been able to kill, especially like earlier in the season. It felt like kill quite a lot of games early on and then almost take their foot off the gas. And I wonder whether there has just been a bit more of almost being able to rest on the job element. But I think as much as Rob speaks about being able to find fitness throughout the season, I think you're seeing that players are just finding relative form as well. And when I say that, I mean like no one's really had like a particularly bad spell, I don't think, this season, unless my memory is failing me. I can't think of anyone who like they went through like a really horrible run of form this season. It feels like you look at Szoboszlai yesterday, but then even Diaz, the goals might have dried up to sort of relative to what they were like at the start of the season. But then that he doesn't get his goal last night, albeit that pass from Salah deserved one. I went to bed dreaming about that last night. But like even the pass is brilliant. It's not necessarily sort of like an open goal as such, because it's quite a degree of difficulty to it. But you come away from that game being like, Diaz deserved a goal because he was absolutely brilliant.
He got an assist, Josh, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He gets the assist as well. So
it's 2 assists and 1 goal in his last 3, I think.
So he is again in the same sort of goal contributing form as Szoboszlai.
Contribution is the new thing. Sorry, Abby, but
Contributions
Point of
are the new
order for
goals.
Lewis there,
But that's what I mean though, Abby, is like you seeing, so many players come into the fore, particularly at this time, but I would argue they've never been away from the fore, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think Diaz was the star of the show for me last night. Szoboszlai was brilliant, but Diaz just felt unbelievable, and I felt quite sorry for him, to be honest, because when he's been getting put through the middle, just sort of like to let Gakpo thrive, I feel like it's been at the detriment to him. I feel like we're so lucky on that left wing. It's unbelievable. And everyone in the summer was like, Liverpool maybe getting top 4, this rebuild, they need new players, they haven't really made signings, like what's Chiesa going to do? But people just underestimated what we had, what was sat there.
Definitely.
The likes of Diaz and Gakpo have been unbelievable. Gakpo comes on and does really well, but it's hard this season to figure out what our gears are, under Slot, because he takes it so professionally, and we tend to like manage the first half really well, and we can be really slow with it, and it's not like what Jurgen had where it was like heavy metal football. It's been hard for me to navigate what is the next gear for us? Like, is it going full throttle? Do we still do that in training? Do we still do that sort of thing? And I think I've been trying to navigate that, and I've sort of thought we've stayed at third gear constantly recently, but I do still believe that there's something else. There's a final push there that maybe we'll take into the Champions League. There's different styles of play here with this team, which I didn't expect to see, and especially in that City game, it was basically attack first, defence in that second half, but we did it so well, and we just let them have possession, which is something that I wasn't expecting to see. And it does that class as a gear? Is that us going down? Is that us going down to first, but the best first gear you've ever seen? That sort of thing. But I think the media have been desperate to spin this narrative that the title race is still going on. But I think the quality in that performance last night and the way Arsenal played, which I did watch back on Match of the Day, they just haven't got goals there. They haven't got that goal threat. Maybe they should have went and signed a striker in the January. I think that has been detrimental to them. But I mean, we were scoring goals from midfield last night and we were fine. Don't tell Arsenal fans that's possible for other players to score goals, that sort of thing. But like we were saying before, I think it was Calafiori hit the post last night. It's moments like that's been replaying in my head when I watched it on Match of the Day. That moment is like, that's the game changer. That's the John Stones clearing it off the line, in our sorts of games. And it does just feel like it's ours, and our team's been so professional in the way that we've done it, and there's so many different ways that we can play with it, and we've got so many options. But like we were saying in the summer, we are going to have to change some things around, especially depending on how those contracts go. You could even argue like, is Bradley the choice right back if Trent goes, or with him being so injury prone, do you need to go and get someone who'll start over Bradley, that sort of thing. But I mean, we've got a decent team there as it is, and you hear people complain on social media, and I think the media push it as well, like, Liverpool are going to crumble. People wanted these contracts to run us into the ground, or Liverpool are going to feel unsettled. Mo Salah hasn't signed another contract, and that just hasn't happened, and I love that. When what the media wants just doesn't happen, and we're able to just go on and prove we are professional, and we are able to go and win that title. And we've got a final round the corner, guys. I'm completely forgetting the fact we've got a trip to Wembley.
It's like we've got another Christmas bolted on. Do you know what I felt about that final? After that week with Everton and Villa and Wolves in the middle, which was the worst win ever in everyone's estimation. I don't think anyone enjoyed that win at all. It's really mad how much pressure we were under then. Suddenly, the other side of City, I felt like on Sunday night, I thought, the final. You couldn't even begin to look forward to it, could you? While the league was so stressed, I was going, fucking final. People were all, the scramble for tickets was going on. Yeah, great, we're going to the final. Now it's like a gorgeous treat, isn't it? I mean, and also but also it's not just that. The Champions League is now a gorgeous treat. I was looking at, we've obviously you're interested in it. What's the draw going to be? But you're still thinking, I don't care what else happens. Just let's win the league. Even if it's going to be painful, let's just get over the line. Let's win the league. Now, we haven't won the league. We've got to be careful. Football can kick you in the teeth and all that, all the superstitious caveats apply. But we have built a platform here that we can properly attack this Champions League now, and I think that's exciting. We're going to talk about it in Monday's show about how my theory that PSG away is the gateway to the final of the Champions League because of the way the draw works. If you get through that, you pass PSG, and the away leg's going to be the harder one. You've then got Lille and Villa, and then onwards.
Bruges and Villa.
Sorry, Bruges or Villa. eminently beatable sides, and you know the other big sides are playing each other.
Yep.
Possibly a final with Barcelona looms, and you go, they're not very good.
Or even a Xabi Alonso special maybe in the final. Who knows? Yeah.
Oh, I'd love that. It's been them 4-0 again. Yeah. Look, you can. This is what I sort of referring to when I was saying earlier. We've got to sort of check our privilege a bit.
Yeah.
I suppose be grateful for what we've got. And what we've got is being on the cusp of a league title. And if we get knocked out by PSG in the Champions League, oh well. You know what I mean? We'll just have to suck that up and poor us enjoy just winning a league and having a fantastic open top bus parade around that and go, number 20. Is it number 20? Would it be number 20? I stopped counting years ago.
Yep.
How many did Man U in? 20?
They're on 20,
famously.
Okay,
so we've got to win it again, have we? That feels like graft, doesn't it? It is graft winning a league.
Yeah. And that's the thing, Beth, like on the sort of subject of, being grateful for what we've got, and especially being grateful in the moment. It feels like we've had to do that with Mo Salah for much of this season, because Abby's right to mention that the sort of narrative around Mo Salah's contract, and particularly to not sort of take Mo's blame completely out of this, the way that he was also helping that narrative be quite present in the media for a little while there. Like we've had to sort of ignore that, and he's had to ignore that, and I wonder to an extent whether almost channel that, really, like channel the frustration of I want to make sure I'm proving everyone wrong here, whether it's the media who are possibly writing him off, but before that saying if there is a contract thing that might unsettle him, the powers that be at Liverpool, who whatever sticking point there is in negotiations he's going, there shouldn't be any sticking points, because you should be throwing whatever years and money and all the things that I want to make sure I stay at Liverpool. And then possibly even some fans, to an extent, really, again coming back to that idea that if anyone thought that because I'm 32 and I'm coming into the twilight years of my career that maybe I was done, or maybe Liverpool weren't able to get me. I remember I was having a conversation about Mo's not close enough to the goal and stuff like this. Like, he's been able to just find his way in this Liverpool team, and when we talk about there being possible, some players are going to be in better form than others at times, but no one's really been in bad form. Really, the whole thing's been underpinned by, you could say Virgil van Dijk as well quite easily, but Mo Salah's goals and coming back to it, goal contributions have just been everything for this Liverpool side this season. Yeah,
they have, and I think it's easy to forget actually that toward the back end of last season there were people talking about Mo Salah as if he were finished. Yeah, there was.
No, you just thought. I think what it was. You had to see there had to be a decline.
Yeah,
you couldn't expect improvement,
especially when big money offers were coming in. You're thinking, right, over 100 million from Saudi. Maybe you do take that and invest elsewhere as he's aging, which obviously was very wrong of us. Yeah,
but I'm not saying that to criticise fans, because I do think it was logical. I think he has that injury which kept him out for sort of the longest spell of his Liverpool career, and after that, he came back. He wasn't the same player. He had a tremendous start to last season as well, didn't he? But just couldn't keep it up. And so I felt like, not that he was finished, but that he was certainly coming to the end of a cycle, and he'd probably have a decent season this season because he's Mo Salah, and the bare minimum you expect is he'll probably get you 20 goals. But beyond that, you sort of certainly couldn't see him getting better. You certainly couldn't see him replicating and maybe even surpassing what he did in his first season. And I think for me, the thing that I've liked this season is that he's just been enjoying himself, and it's been such a privilege to watch him every week. I think it has been one of those seasons where you think, gosh, we're so lucky to, not just as Liverpool, from a Liverpool perspective, but as football fans, to be able to watch one of the best players in Premier League history every single week, and he's been delivering every single week. And even just down to little things like him taking those selfies after every game. And it did make me laugh last night how, it was sort of one of those things that he only did it when he scored. But then last night he was like, oh no, I got an assist. Yeah. I'll gag in on one with Szoboszlai and McAllister.
So much so that I looked at him and went, did we win 3-0?
But it just does sort of feel like, he's really enjoying himself, and he's taking the time to really appreciate everything. I think sort of the synergy between him and the fans this season is stronger than it's ever been. I think even down to him going up to away ends at the end of games and really sort of giving it the big one a little bit. And last night he took his time going around applauding the Kop. And I'm not saying he didn't do that in previous seasons, but it does just feel like he's really relishing the opportunity this season to just play his football and feel that love from the fans. And you can look at that from a negative perspective and think, well, maybe that's because he knows, or he thinks that this might be his last season. I still think I still think there is an expectation that he probably does stay, purely because you look and you think, where does he go?
Unless he wants to retire effectively in Saudi.
Yeah.
You know, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he'll want to retire.
No.
The better he's got, the more less likely he is to want to retire in Saudi.
Yeah, and so for me, I think the only way he doesn't stay is if Liverpool really do lowball him with what they're putting on the table, and he feels and rightly probably feels that, you know, I don't deserve to be lowballed. You know, I've had one of the best individual seasons in Premier League history, but, you know, whatever happens in the summer, it does just feel like he's better than ever, doesn't it? And that he's playing with a smile on his face, and I think that makes a difference. I think, you know, when players are enjoying themselves, and I think that's been the big difference between Liverpool and Arsenal, I think, over the last sort of all season really, but the last couple of months certainly. And yes, Arsenal have had injuries and that's made it harder for them, but it just feels like Liverpool are enjoying themselves, they're enjoying playing together, and there's a real sort of, there is this real sense of enjoyment, whereas it feels like with Arsenal, it's always got a little bit of an edge of you know, they want it so much, and and that's weighing them down.
It's a sense of entitlement they have. That's what's weird, as though it's their destiny and everyone else can just shut up and wait for them to do what they need to do. I find that slightly strange. I mean,
I think it's really difficult for Arsenal fans to accept the fact that we've come up against City all that time, won the league against them, fell off again, completely had to rebuild the midfield, completely changed the team, changed managers, lost Jurgen, got a new manager in, and then now we're going to go and win the league against them in the one season that City's fell off.
And
you know what I mean?
It is understandable, because, you know, Liverpool fans know better than anyone else how tough it is going up against Manchester City, and Liverpool, you know, statistically did a better job of it in terms of pushing them to you know, 98 points a couple of seasons ago, and 93 points I think City won it with, didn't they, in 21-22. So, you know, Liverpool know how hard it is. Arsenal have had a taste of that the last 2 years, and you would feel, if you were an Arsenal fan, like, God, the one season that City aren't at it, and we're not at it, having had two really impressive seasons. So I do understand, you know, I do get your point about sort of the entitlement, and I think that's really amplified online, and you know, you do get subsections of fan bases that are just slightly unbearable.
I think it comes from the manager. If we're digressing to talk about Arsenal, what I found strange about them is, our run of competition with City spans, 7 years, really? You can even extend it, you can extend it up to the end of last season. But we post 3 90-point-plus seasons. And one of the seasons that they pip us to the league, we pip them significantly to the Champions League. So that's 2 seasons we were better than them in. And another one where, you know, that we nearly won a bloody quadruple, but for the butterfly flapping its wings, you know, more or less. Arsenal haven't come that close to them. Their first season, they don't actually finish close to City at all. They're the surprise package. So they've gone from what, 20 years in the wilderness since Wenger last won the thing, to they have a good start to what is it, the 22-23 season, I think it is, and they're top at Christmas, something like that, and they can't believe their luck. But they seem to gain this, and Arteta, it was imbued in Arteta's an example of it. Talking as we're finally back where we belong. Bloody hell, you belong there have some humility with this. And then they fell off a cliff in January there. They were out of the title race by February of that season, I think, if memory serves. I mean, maybe not mathematically, but effectively. It's only last season, I think, they can say, well, we gave it a really good go, and 89 points you have to applaud that. But it's a sense that they are the natural heirs to City's throne. That's how they've positioned themselves. And the manager, he's asked these questions. He goes, I thought we were superb. He's, what did he say? He virtually said, over my dead body, will we surrender this league? Even Guardiola's gone at points. I remember him the year, we were top at Christmas the year after we won the league. We'd beaten Palace 7-0, and City were like 6 adrift of us, maybe with a game in hand. And he went, well, we can't win the league. It's unlikely. It's Liverpool's to
crying
lose.
It in, yeah.
So you lose. Yeah, but at least there was a bit crying it in, a lot crying it in, but a lot of humility as well with it. It was Arteta, no, we fight. He's almost acting like the champions we are. No, you're not. They haven't even put in a title challenge. They're tracking 2 points a game here, and it's not like we're 10 in. We're 3/4 of the way through this season nearly. They're tracking 2 points a game. They're tracking the points total of a team that tends to finish about third, maybe even some seasons fourth. Okay, they've got some easy-ish games coming up. They could finish over 80 points, but it won't be much over 80 points. They haven't been title challengers, unless things go spectacularly well for them, spectacularly badly for us. I think we'll end the season and go, oh, well, they weren't our challengers. No one was.
And that's the thing is like they've got one trophy to show for it, one major trophy, obviously a couple of community shields, but Alan Partridge shoulder shrug at that. Like they've got
not trophies.
Exactly. They've got the one FA Cup in 2020. Otherwise, like that was the thing. Like when you're talking about Liverpool almost being on the precipice of that greatness before they do go and win the league. Liverpool win the Champions League the season before they win the league. Liverpool win the Club World Cup in that same season that they do go on to win the league as well. So like you're looking at all these like almost touch points of Liverpool were close to the promised land of winning the Premier League, but really they had all these moments of success before that as well, and moments after. Really, we've had 21, 22 of where Liverpool have been able to win trophies. Again, last season we win the League Cup. Arsenal can't even lay claim to that. Like they can talk like they are the ones who've been hard done to because of City's dominance in the last few years. But like go and win some other pots and prove that you're worthy of being up there, because if you don't in the meantime, everyone's just going to see you as the pretenders.
Yeah, over a period of time, just thinking, the more I think about it, in 3 of those Klopp seasons we were just talking about, I think we've probably got the highest number of wins or win percentage. That what we always refer to as the near quadruple season. Okay, we end up with the domestic cups, and so it doesn't count unless you win the 2 big ones. But the number of football matches we won at the highest level is more than City won, even though they pipped us to the league that season. I would argue that in moral terms, 3 of Klopp's seasons, Liverpool were better than Manchester City. 19 when we win the Champions League, 20 when we win the league, and 22 when we win those 2 domestic cups and nearly win the other 2. I think we were better than City, clearly. So how many seasons were they better than us? Probably another 3, right? It's a pretty even rivalry, even though they can count their number of pots over us. But by the way, we were in 3 Champions League finals in that time. The vagaries of luck. We could be saying we won in that spell under Klopp, we won the league 3 times, and now under Slot, we've won. But for tiny, tiny margins, Liverpool could have had 4 league titles in the space of 7 years and 2 or 3 Champions League titles in the space of 7 years. History could have been written quite differently. Arsenal are not in that conversation anywhere near yet.
I think Arsenal are talking too much about their injuries as well. And like you've just been saying about those titles. Last season, when you look at the players we were without, we could have challenged well better last season if some of our players were still fit. We had a terrible injury record that's probably worse than
literally win the League Cup with a team of kids.
We were playing children. Children
we had 9
were on
first
that
teamers
pitch.
out in February, I think, at one point.
Exactly. Yeah. And I honestly think that if our team was fit, our squad was fit, we'd have finished second last season and probably challenged City even better there. I 100% believe that. And I think they do have this obnoxious belief in themselves. I don't know if that comes from like the AFTV thing or the narrative of the media saying that they are going for it sort of thing, and they're buying into it. Like they're drunk on the success of people talking about them because they've been like going for top 4 for so many years. And like you've just said, where are your pots and pans? You know what I mean? Where are your trips to Wembley? You've won 1. You know what I mean? I think it's just obnoxious from them. I honestly think that they are too big for their boots, 100%. And I still think back to that time Arteta started playing You'll Never Walk Alone in that training session, and they put it on Amazon Prime. It's just, it's hilarious.
Try-hard,
it's just try hard, try hard.
Naming a dog win, I think, is probably up there.
The pickpockets. Don't forget the pickpockets.
Stuff.
I feel this sort of, to use a modern expression, cosplaying being champions.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
They're
Fake it till you make it.
Walking the walk, but you're not. And, and crying about the injuries. I mean, as you said, Abby, that injury crisis, I don't think we took, obviously we'd have conversations on it in shows like this, but we weren't going, we haven't got Mo Salah, we haven't got Trent, we haven't got half the bloody team. The keeper, our bloody keeper, the best in the world, was out half the season. And by the way, he's been out a good chunk of this season.
You mentioned the behind closed door season as well. Like it wasn't our captain at the time, but Virgil van Dijk gets done by Everton's keeper, and he's out for the season. Like, what a cruel twist of fate that is.
Although we finished that season 3rd, but we're top at Christmas.
Yep.
And then we lose every defender.
That's the Tim Sherwood goal at Spurs, isn't it? Where I was like, we're going to win the league again. Genuinely, like I was that confident.
We should have won that league, but we lost confidence and we lost players, and obviously fans not in the ground. We know the experiment of not seeing fans in the ground. We can tell what percentage impact they have, because it's almost like it's scientific fact now, because look at the records of home and away. It didn't flip, but I think it went to a sort of parity if you look at the stats around the world on average. So, you think about it, we've got the best crowd in the world, and we shouldn't be ashamed to say that gives us an edge, because it does. what would have happened that season? I mean, we're doing all our yesterdays here, but Jesus.
I think as well, like sometimes, injury, sometimes you're lucky, sometimes you're unlucky. There's certain things that you just can't mitigate for, but sometimes you do just sort of have to take your medicine, and it is the responsibility of not necessarily the players and the manager, but the club to go out and find solutions. And I think Liverpool in that season where they lost all of the centre-backs, there was a part of that was on the club, because it was clear in the January they'd lost Virgil in October, I think, Joe Gomez not long after, Matip not long after that. Yeah. So they went into January. It wasn't a surprise.
Henderson, then Fabinho, even the covers.
But it wasn't a surprise going into that January window that Liverpool needed a centre-back, and they had ample time to do the due diligence. And I know January is a difficult market, but if Liverpool had really wanted to sort of save the season and mount a real genuine title challenge, then it was on the club to go out in that January and spend and bring in a centre-back. And they obviously...
go and get Konate early, for example.
They obviously decided, we're going to wait for Konate in the summer, and they bring in Ben Davis, who didn't make an appearance for the club.
No, he didn't.
And Kabak, who, had the odd decent game, but wasn't Liverpool standard. And so then you look back and you think, well, yeah, Liverpool have been unlucky, but also the club have made a conscious decision not to go out and reinforce, and that's what Arsenal have done this season. They went into January, I know they've lost players since, but they went into January, they went into last summer knowing that they needed a striker, because that was all that was people were banging on about toward the end of last season. They didn't spend on a striker in the summer. They've got to January, they needed to bring an attacker in, and they needed it even more when players started getting injured, and they didn't do that, and they've paid the price for that. And yes, it's unlucky, but the club also need to hold their hands up and say, this is where I understand the Arsenal fans being frustrated at the board and things like that, because, really, if they wanted to challenge for a title, they had to go out and spend big in January in terms of bringing in an attacker, and they didn't. And so you look back and you say, that's not bad luck, that's just bad planning on the club's behalf.
Also, if I think back, I don't think my memory's tricking me. Take their biggest injury this year, the one that's they would say has killed them, the Saka injury, right? He had a number of niggles, didn't he, earlier in the season, like pulled out of England squads, or slightly. There were times where Saka, he's touch and go whether he's going to play. He's felt his hamstring.
Well, he was constantly limping off in games, wasn't he? Because that's where the sort of meme comes from about the Saka limp. But
the joke rebounded on him. What it actually showed, he was a player being played in the proverbial red zone.
Yep.
And they kind of have got what they asked for here with their management of him. He played virtually every game last season, limping out of games. You have to see the writing on the wall if you've played players in time. Martinelli's another one. You could tell he's always on the cusp of an injury. Yeah. So we fell into the same...
Gabriel Jesus the same, by the way.
Of course. Yeah. We've had the same trap a bit last season. We brought players back too soon. Trent came back from an injury, pulled up straight away. Salah came back from an injury, pulled up straight away. Yeah. I think it happened in one... I think Dominic Szoboszlai it happened to.
Yeah, the same thing.
So Liverpool weren't getting this right last season. It's a part of being a winning football team. It's not just what happens on the pitch. We're going back to what we said earlier, but it's about getting all these decisions right. And I think, I don't criticise having just lauded the Klopp era, but that side of things, you do wonder. And Arsenal, they have to take their medicine with the way they've managed their squad.
Absolutely. Whether they will or not, whether they will stay humble, it remains to be seen. But Liverpool are getting it all right on and off the pitch at the moment. A cheeky weekend off now, which is richly deserved, and then a trip to Paris next week. All our build-up ahead of that game is to come, so subscribe to Anfield Wrap for all of that. If you are part of a business or brand, as much as I joked earlier in the show, that's listening or watching this red-hot piece of free content and wondering how you can get involved in partnering with us to help us produce such red and hot and free content, please do get in touch. We're all going to go and put our feet up for a couple of days now while the Reds do the same. Nice one.